three ordinary moments, three very different outcomes, and one of them may feel closer than you think. The first moment starts with a list. The day started at the counter, looking over what I had just written. Milk, bread, eggs, something for dinner. Before I left, I checked my account. I had the money. I was just unsure if it was enough. Have you ever had that feeling? Where the number is there, but it does not let you relax? That was me. Looking from the list to the balance, trying to convince myself it would be okay. I should have enough. Just enough. I was not confident. I was just silently hoping. When I got to the store, I checked the list once more before going in. It was going to be close. I needed to stick to the list. Inside the doors, I reached for a basket. The list was small, so a basket made sense. I walked toward the first aisle with the same thoughts playing in my head. Just enough. I picked up the milk and looked at the price. It was higher than I remembered. I put it in the basket anyway. Then the bread. I reached for the one I normally bought, paused, and picked up the one that was more reasonably priced. I was shopping on a budget, adjusting as I went. I walked to the aisle with the next item on the list. Eggs. I already knew they would be priced higher than I wanted. Everything seemed to be costing more. I stood there for a second, looking at the different sizes and different prices. I picked the one that made the most sense, not the cheapest, not the best, the one that fit the number I had in my head. Then I looked at the list. Dinner. Something simple. Something that fit the budget. Something that could stretch into enough for everyone. I walked past a few options first. I already knew they would not fit the end total. Too much. Too small. Too expensive for what it was. I picked up one package, checked the price, and put it back. Too expensive. I reached for a cheaper brand. This one could work. I held it for a second, doing the math again without really wanting to. That works. I put it in the basket. Then I looked down at everything together. The list was done. No extras. On budget. I hoped. One step left. Hoping, almost praying, that the number in my head matched the number at the till, or at least comes close. I walked toward the checkout. There were two people ahead of me. My thoughts drifted from the basket to the budget and back again. Nervous. The person at the front tapped their card. Approved. They took their bag and left. Then the next person. Tap. Approved. I took out my card. Checked. It was there. Then I looked down at the basket and started placing each item on the belt. Milk. Bread. I watched the total climb with each sound of the beep. Not too high yet, but edging closer. Closer to the number I had been carrying in my head since I left the house. I placed down the eggs. Then dinner. The cashier looked at the screen, then said the total. For a second I did not move. It was close, but it was okay. I tapped the card. The screen paused. Approved. The weight on my shoulders melted away, like nothing had happened, because to everyone else, nothing had. I picked up the bag, said thank you, put the card back in my wallet, and walked out of the store with the receipt in my hand. The total was close. There was some relief. For a few seconds, that was enough. Then I looked at the receipt again. Proof that I had made it through. Proof that the math in my head had been close enough. But this moment had started before the till. It started with the list, then the account, then the balance that made me look twice. From there, the whole trip had been shaped by small decisions, trying to stay ahead of what might happen later. The basket, the budget, the more reasonably priced bread, the eggs that fit, the dinner that worked. The way I watched the total climb with every beep. I was not trying to predict the moment, but without realizing it, my choices already were. My choices had directed how the day played out. I did not control everything, but I shaped what I could. The list, the account, the basket, the budget. Each small choice helped lay a path toward an outcome I could better predict. And this time, that path ended with one word: approved. That was one kind of moment, the kind where your thoughts about the future start shaping your choices before it arrives. But not every moment looks like a checkout line. Sometimes it looks like a simple answer you give when you are not really okay. Have you ever had one of those days where everything seems out of control? But when someone asks what's wrong, you say, "I'm fine," even when you're not. The second story starts there, not with yelling, not with some dramatic breakdown, just one of those days that slowly stacks itself on your shoulders. The dread of what is ahead, your reaction to it, and finally, the behavior everybody sees. I remember having days like that, days where nothing huge happened, but everything felt heavy anyway. One message I forgot to answer, one thing I still needed to deal with, one more responsibility added to a day that already felt full. Have you ever had one of those moments where even simple questions start to feel exhausting? That was the feeling. Not loud, not dramatic, just quietly building in the background while I kept moving through the day like everything was normal. Then someone asked, "Are you okay?" And for a second, I thought about answering honestly, about saying how tired I actually was, how mentally drained the whole week had started to feel, how even small things lately seemed to arrive already carrying weight. But instead, I looked up and said, "I'm fine, just a little tired." The room did not fall silent. My behavior said more than my words did. My voice was calm, controlled. I did not have to explain any further. But I was feeling unsettled, a feeling that stayed with me for the rest of the day and into the night. Not loud, not dramatic, just there, under the quiet, under the small smile I kept giving so no one would ask again. By the end of the night, nothing looked wrong from the outside. No argument, no breakdown, no scene. My behavior was a steady tone, a controlled voice, the small smile that made everything seem okay. I was not trying to hide everything. I was just trying to hold the night together. But without realizing it, the behavior had already started shaping the outcome. Not through yelling, not through conflict, through silence, through minimizing, through acting okay long enough that no one looked deeper. That was another kind of moment. Not the future being predicted through small choices, but a feeling becoming visible through behavior. And sometimes, if you slow down enough, you can see both happening at the same time. Have you ever agreed to something even though you knew it was too much? Because yes felt easier than disappointing someone. That was me. Not because I wanted more pressure, not because I thought I could handle more. I remember staring at the message on my phone, thinking long and hard. Another shift, another responsibility, another thing added to a week that already felt full. And even before I answered, I could already feel where the week was heading. How many times have you felt this feeling, where thinking of the outcome starts before the moment even happens? I remember telling myself things like, "Just get through this week." Then another week would show up, then another. The pressure did not arrive all at once. It stacked slowly, one yes at a time, one delayed break at a time. One more thing added to the list because I thought I could handle it. Have you ever noticed how easy it is to say yes, even when part of you already knows where it usually leads? Saying yes. It's not the pressure I created, but the effect that pressure had on me. The feeling, the reaction, the behavior that always followed. Me saying yes, pushing through, telling myself I would rest later. For the first time, I could see all of it together. Not just the choices, the direction those choices kept pulling me toward. Have you ever stopped long enough to realize you already knew how the week was going to end? Tired, mentally drained, promising yourself rest after one more task. That was the moment something finally felt clear to me. Not because life suddenly slowed down, because I finally slowed down long enough to look honestly at what I kept repeating. the pressure, my reaction to it, the behavior that followed after, me saying yes when I already felt overloaded, pushing through instead of pausing, telling myself I would rest later, and eventually realizing none of those moments were separate. They were connected, predictive, behavior, and the model that forms when you finally begin to see both clearly. The path is not always clear in the moment, but when you slow down, reflect, and look honestly at what is shaping the choice, the next direction can become clearer. And sometimes, that clearer direction is enough to change what comes next. That is why I created the PBM Starter Guide and Reflection Worksheet. Not to tell people how to live, but to help them slow down long enough to see what may already be shaping their choices, reactions, and direction. Sometimes the biggest change is not one massive decision. Sometimes it starts with finally seeing your thought pattern and the direction it takes you more clearly. If you want to reflect a little deeper on the choices, reactions, and patterns that may already be shaping your direction, the free PBM Starter Guide and Reflection Worksheet are linked below. A free gift for you or anyone who wants to reflect a little deeper. Just a way to slow down for a moment, reflect, and think honestly about what may already be shaping the next step.